Hey guys, how's it going? It's Dylan again and welcome back to my channel. So I'm pretty excited today because I'm actually going to be extending the UI series where we started to create a minimalistic UI with Unity. And in the previous lessons, I walked you through creating a canvas, doing script animations, looking at Unity events. In this session, I'm actually going to walk you through inheriting from the editor itself. And we're going to be customizing some of the scripts that we worked on previously. And the reason why I want to do that is because I actually want to clean it up for, if you want to start working on a UI and you want to add this component to your own project, I want this to be as intuitive as I can. So let's actually jump into Unity and start working on some of that. All right, guys, so what I want to show you is what we did on the previous videos. So if I click on the settings button, you're going to see that I have a fade in, and if I click on the X, fade out. So I also did a different animation. We had a movement, and you can specify the move duration and also the location where the window comes from and the target. So if I click on the settings button, you can see that that is all working. And if I click on the X, and if I change the duration to be, let's say, maybe 1 second, then you can see that it's much faster now. So one thing that I was thinking about is that some of these settings don't apply to everything. So if I click on movement, I do want to see the move settings, but I don't want to see fade duration. If I click on fade, I don't want to see move duration, move from, and move to. I only want to see what it applies to that option. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to create a new custom inspector to override some of this functionality and make it a lot easier for you or for the person that is working on the UI. So to do that, we're going to go into Project, and I'm going to create a new folder under Scripts, and we need to call that folder Editor. That is a Unity requirement. Then inside of the editor, I'm going to create a new script, and we're going to call it Window Editor, because it's going to be the editor that we're going to be customizing, which in our case, the class is called Window. So then let's just double click it to open it. Excellent. So I'm going to remove the start and update methods because they don't apply anymore. And I'm also going to inherit from editor. We're going to be bringing in a new namespace, which is going to be called Unity Editor. And we need to do a couple of things here. We need to say custom editor, type of, and it's going to be a type of window because that is what we want to create an editor for. The other thing we want to do is we're going to do a public void override. And we're going to override the onInspector GUI. Excellent. And it's actually public override void. Perfect. Excellent. So by default, if you type in target is basically part of the editor. It's telling Unity that our target is going to be the window, and that's how you can access some of the attributes, the variables, anything that is exposed to you from the window class. So, but we need to do a couple of things before we get to that. We need to get basically an instance of window, and this is going to be our custom window editor. And we're going to cast target to window. Perfect. So right now, if we go back into Unity, I want to show you what's happening right now, because it took me a while to understand it. And if you notice, I don't have anything now in the inspector. The reason for that is because we're telling Unity that this is going to override the GUI. So right now we haven't really added any labels. We haven't really added anything about our window. So Unity is saying, okay, that is your custom editor. That's what I'm going to show. So how do we actually extend the functionality of what we already wrote? And that's what we're going to do in this video. Okay, so the next thing that I need to do is we need to specify, so I want to give it a title. So I'm going to say Editor GUI Layout, and then we're going to say label field, and I'm going to say window settings, for instance. If we go back into our Unity and let it compile, you're going to see that we're going to see a label now called window settings. So great. We have our new custom inspector. But that doesn't really do much. So what do we need to add first that basically give us functionality? So if we go back into the UI component, which has most of the implementation, if we go all the way to the top, if you remember, we added a start hidden because we want to show we want to determine if we start the window in hiding mode or if we want to show it right from the start. So, but right now this is private, so I don't really have access. If I go here and I say custom editor window and then I start hidden, I don't have access to that. So we need to create properties for everything that we need to access. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say public bool start hidden, and I'm going to do my curly braces, and I'm going to say get start hidden, and also my setter start hidden equal value. Excellent. So that is going to be our first property. So now if I go here and I say custom window editor start hidden, you can see that I now have that property available because we just exposed it through a public accessor. So that's great. So now how do we add it? And that's the next thing that I'm going to do. So we're going to say start hidden because we want to control that value through here. And what I'm going to do, and I'm going to say EditorGUILayout. And there's a lot of different options that we have on the editor GUI. So I'm going to look for bool. And if you notice, I don't have a bool. It's actually called a toggle. And if you open parentheses, it's going to ask us for what we're going to be using for the toggle. So we're going to be using the same property. Excellent. So now if we go back into Unity and just give it a few seconds to recompile, you're going to see what happens. So now I see a property, but I don't have a label. So that's the other thing that we need to do is, if you notice, some of the options in here are a label. So we're going to say that we need to specify a label. So there's going to be a start hidden, and we're going to have our value on the other side. And now if I go into Unity, we're going to see a label and then the value that it says. So we had that originally, but now we have more control because we can actually call these whatever we want. We're just telling it what property we're going to be setting, and then in the actual target element, which is going to be our window, the target class, we're going to set the start hidden to true or false, depending on what the designer actually sets. So that's great. So what else do we need to set? So some of the other settings that we need to set are the animation type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reorganize this a little bit because I want to do it in the same order that we're going to be doing the GUI so that it makes more sense to you. So if I do an animation type of fade, I want to have fade duration, and I also want to have, let's see, I think that's actually everything I want to have. But if I do a movement, I want to have all of these different settings that I have in here, which is going to be all of these, actually, all of these, which is going to be the move duration, the move front, and the move to. So I'm going to move those up. This is going to be used basically for organization purposes so that it makes sense when you're looking at it. Excellent. So if we have the animation type set to fade, we're only going to show these. If we have the animation type set to movement, we're only going to show these different settings. Excellent. And let me actually do some refactoring here since we're here. And we're going to do actually another line for the move to. Excellent. And also it's going to be serializable because we still want it exposed. Perfect. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is I want to expose the animation type. Right now I made it protected. I don't actually need to make it protected because I'm gonna make a public property that is gonna be accessible from the window, which is the main reason why we made it protected. So we'll fix that as well. So we're gonna say public animation type, and let me make sure that I type it correctly. Animation type, and I'm just gonna call this animation because I don't want it to collide with the actual type. Perfect. And I'm gonna do my curly braces for my property, and I'm basically just gonna copy this, and we can just replace the values. Excellent. So we have our animation. Now we gotta go back into our window and replace anything that we call animation type. It's just gonna be animation because we're now using a property to access that information. So that should be fine. And just to give you enough information that I'm gonna be putting this information in this source code in GitHub. So don't worry about it if if I went too fast or you need to pause. You're gonna be able to go through the code in GitHub. So I'll be posting that at the end of the video. Okay, perfect. So now we have an animation type. So the next thing that I'm gonna do, the main reason why I have this side to side is so that we can make changes on the UI component and we actually start creating the editor window on the right hand side. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create now I should have access to animation, which I do. And instead of doing a toggle, I'm actually going to do an enum. So I'm going to say an enum pop-up. And this is going to be the animation type. And we're going to use the animation as the property. And the reason why this is complaining is because you need to cast it. So we need to say that this is going to be actually casted to an animation type. And if you notice, I don't have access to that because you actually need to do the name of the class. So you need to say UI component, animation type. Excellent. And let's just put it right below it so you can see it. Perfect. And I'll do the same thing with this one so that you can see everything. Excellent. So now if I go back into Unity, you'll see that I'll get a new line right below this one where you can actually set the animation type. Perfect. So let's actually do more. We need also the fade duration. So I'm going to do the same thing here, public float, fade duration, and we'll do our property. I'll copy what we did before, and we'll just replace the values. And we'll copy that, and paste it. Excellent. And we'll do the same thing here. We're just going to steal this code and create a new line. And this one is going to be fade duration. And also our label, fade duration. And we can copy that property. And this is not going to be a toggle. This one is going to be a flow field because we know that this is actually a flow. So perfect. So then the next one that we're going to need is the move duration. So let's do the exact same thing. I'm going to change this to, instead of fade, it's going to be move. Perfect. And then the same thing on this one. And let's replace our label. And we'll need to add it as a property. So I'm going to put it right beneath move duration. And let's just rename it move duration. And we'll just replace fade duration with move duration. And this should now compile. Yep, and it's working fine. So the other thing that we need move from and move to. So let's do the same thing. I'm going to copy move duration twice. And this is going to be move from. And this one is going to be move to. So the same thing here, move from. Copy that value and that value. It's actually a property, and then move to. And we'll do the same thing here. And it's not compiling because we haven't added the property, so we'll need to do the same thing in here. So public vector3 move from, and then our curly braces, and we'll just copy the code from the other property. And let's just replace the variables. And I'm going to do the same thing on the move to. Excellent. And this one is going to be called move to, and excellent. And I think that it's everything that we need. The other thing we need to fix is this is not a flow. This is going to be a vector. So if you type in that vector3 field, then that should work, and also the same on this one. So this is cool and all, but it doesn't really gives us a lot of information. Like, it's not really intuitive yet. It's gonna give us everything that we need, but you'll see what so right now I don't really have a way to control. If I select movement, I see everything, and I don't want to see everything. I only want to see what actually. I only want to see. So this is great. We added all the information. So now if we go into Unity, you can see that we have everything showing, but I only want to see move duration when I select movement And the same thing with move from and move to. And when I select fade, I only want to see the fade duration. So we need to do a check in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an if statement, and we're going to check on the animation. If the animation is of type, so we're going to say UI component, the animation type. So if we're doing a fade, we're only going to see the fade duration. So we'll move that information inside of that if statement, else if, and I'll just basically copy all that. And the else is going to be the move animation type. So I'll just paste everything for the move inside of the move check, the move condition. And let me just make sure this is all good. And let's change this from fade to movement. Excellent. And let me just clean this up. Perfect. So now what I'm saying is if the custom editor window animation is set to fade, I'm only going to show the fade duration. Otherwise, I'm going to say, okay, if the animation is of type movement, I'm only going to see any settings that pertain to the move. So let's actually see if this works. Let's go back into Unity and just click it. Perfect. So right now, if I say none, I don't see any settings, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted to see. But if I say fade, I only see the fade duration. If I say movement, I only see the move duration and also the move from and the move to, which is awesome. So now if I go and hit play, let's make sure that this is still working. And if you look at these settings, I have it set to movement. Let's actually do it really fast. Let's do 0.5. And if I click on it, you can see that it's actually doing really, really fast. Let's actually do 0.1. You can see that it's really, really fast. So that's working. Now if I do a fade, let's actually do a fade of 0.5. And looks like we got something not working. Oh, it's actually working. Okay, there we go. The fade wasn't set correctly. All right, so that's all working. We have our movement, we have our fade. The other thing that we lost is we don't have we also had some different components in here that we're not seeing right now. We don't see the window header title, which we were seeing before. So let's actually create a property for that. So I'm gonna say public and then string window header title. And we'll add a property, and just like we did with everything else. And let's go into our UI component, and I'm going to copy this section. And actually, I only need the body. So let me just get the body. Perfect. And I only need to replace the window header title and also the one on the setter. Perfect. So some of these settings are like more global, so I'm going to add those to the very top. So I'm actually going to add them right here, and I'm just going to copy the start hidden, and this is going to be my window title. And if we can put in here window title, window header title, let's actually rename that. Perfect. And this is not going to be a toggle. This is just going to be, let's actually do a text field. Should work just fine. So now let's go into Unity and let's make sure that that's still working. And we see that it's called settings. So let's actually call it settings window to see if that works. And we'll hit play. And we'll show, and we can see that it's called settings window. So that's working perfect. So let's see what else we need in order for us to. So header text component, we also need to expose that because we need to tell it what components we're going to be associating in order for us to set the text. So we actually need to expose that information. So let me check. Excellent. So let's do public, and then we'll do the same thing that we did before. Header text component. And in this case, I'm just going to steal this code, paste it in here. Excellent. And we're just going to copy header text component, and header text component. Perfect. So for this one, it's going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to actually put that information. Well, actually, I can put it right beneath the title because it basically pertains to that. So let's go here, and this is going to be window header component, or we can actually call it game object because it is the game object that we need to associate. Perfect. And this is going to be header text component. I'm actually going to rename it. Let's rename it to header text game object because that's what it is. And we'll do the same thing on this other one. Header text game object. Perfect. And that's working. And let's actually rename it here. Window, and we call it header text game object. And we do the same thing on this one. Perfect. And this is going to be, it's not going to be a text field. It's going to be an object. And actually, I don't think this takes in a label. So let's try just with the game object itself. And this is of type text. Let me see. Let me make sure that I have all the different settings that I need. It's actually an object field. Let me make sure that this is taking, oh, I see. So we need to tell it that is, okay, and then we need to tell it what type. So we need to do comma and then type of, it's going to be text. And we also need to cast it to what it is. I think that is the correct, oh, and we need to bring in using Unity engine.ui. See if this works. And I'm getting check the documents. Let's see. Check the docs for the usage of the new parameter allows in objects. Let's see if this works. And if it doesn't work, then we'll look at some of the documentation. It's actually working just fine. And there's probably another override that we might be able to use. And params, object field. That's fine. I think it's working fine. It's just basically telling us not to use that for some reason. So, but it's working fine. We can see that we have our text and it's associated. So if we go into settings and we click on settings window, we need to tell it what the header is. So our header is going to be the header text. We'll do the same thing on the levels window and we'll tell it what our header is. Perfect. And I think that's the title. And I want to say that I also want to see a label though. Oh, okay. We need to specify a label. So let's do that. So this is going to be your window header game object. Excellent. And if we go back into Unity, we should be able to see the label now on that property. Okay, and we can see that there. We can also see it on this one, so that's great. All right, so that is our header text game object, and we have it all hooked up. Let me see what else we have in here that we need to also add. So we need to expose our Unity events, because those are really, really handy. So let's do public Unity event on open, and we'll do the same thing that we've been doing on all the other ones. So let's just copy this, and we're just going to copy the variable, the private variable, and we'll do the same thing when we unclose. So actually make it capital O, and this is going to be basically that. Excellent. So now what we need to do, I actually haven't exposed a Unity event, to be honest, through a custom inspector. So let me see if that shows just by doing that. So let's see, and I'm not seeing it just yet. All right, now let's add the property for the Unity events. So I found some code that I have to dig in the Unity forums that explain how to actually hook up a Unity event to a custom inspector. So you have to use the serialize property, and then you basically look for the Unity event itself. So this is going to be the Unity event, and this is going to be on open. So we use serialize property, serialize object, find property on open, and that's going to find the Unity event that we have. Then we need to add that property to the EditorGUILayout, and then we have to, on the GUI change method, we have to apply these modify properties values. So that's going to be for the onOpen, and then for the onClose, we're going to do exactly the same thing, onClose, and then also here onClose, and we add that property as well. Perfect. So now let's go back into Unity and make sure that everything is working fine. And we have our on open, and we also have on our close. So maybe what I'm going to do is add another field label at the end for any type of event. So this is going to be window events, window Unity events. And if we go back into Unity, we should see a little bit of a separation in here. Excellent. And we can see Unity, window Unity events, and then all of our events. So I want to make sure that this is working. Let's actually hook something up on the onClose. So what I'm going to do on the onClose, let's go into our window, and I'm just going to add, let's actually add something in here. Say public void testing onClose Unity event. And then we can just say onClose, we can just say testing onClose Unity event executed. Excellent. Let's go back into Unity, and I'm going to hook that up to the settings window so that we can see it. So the way that this is going to work is if I click on this plus symbol on the onClose and then associate the settings window with it, now I have access to the window itself, and then also or the method that we just created to test the functionality. Perfect. So I think everything is it's set up and wired up. So let's actually hit play. Now if I click on it, I can see my window showing. If I click on the X, I can see the window closing, and I'm actually able to see the event that I wired up on the onClose Unity event, which is great. So that's all working just fine. Now if I change this to a fade, I don't see any of the move options, and we can say 0.1 just to do a very fast fade. And I don't think that's working. Let me actually stop the game and hit play one more time. Let's actually just set it initially, and I'm gonna set it to, let's actually set it to 1 second. Hit play, and we're fading in and fading out, so that's working fine. Perfect. The same thing if I want to do a movement. Let's see, let me actually increment, let's do 600 on the y-axis so that we can see something more fun. It's probably not going to be aligned correctly, but we can see that it's going from, you know, negative 1000 to negative 800, and then trying to snap to X as 0, and then going up a little bit on Y. So that's perfect. It's all working fine. I can go back to here. Excellent. So that's basically everything for this lesson. So if I go back into the window editor, I actually went through and created a new window editor that basically extends the functionality of the window by giving us an editor itself that we can control. You know, we can actually make it more intuitive. So that's really everything for this session. If you guys have any questions, let me know through the comments, and don't forget to share and subscribe to this channel. Also, remember that I'm going to be posting this in GitHub, so you're more than welcome to clone the code. Thank you, guys.